This conference will now be recorded.
So we talked about network policies, right? And we did the multi-factor authentication as well, right? Yes, you have to talk to me, please. I don't remember where we exactly stopped. Have we done the MFA?
I don't think, Shekhar, exactly not
So where
remember.
did, where did we stop? At least any clue? I'm not sharing Chanakes Reddy. I just want to know where did I stop last time. Any clue, guys, please? MFA done. Yeah, thank you. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, Shekhar, we can able to.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So I think we have spoken about multi-factor authentication, right? I was telling about a Dio mobile app where you have to install, and then whenever you're trying to sign up, you'll get another push notification to your mobile, and then you have to accept it. I've
Yeah,
showed you how to set up. Yeah, that particular thing is done now. We'll talk about the mobile multi-factor authentication. Okay, I've shown you how to disable the multi-factor authentication, and then the next thing is single sign-on. It's also called federated authentication. So there are two things when you are trying to so normally what happens in an environment, you might have the single sign-on already in the corporate environment. They might have used your mm, Microsoft Active Directory or my LDAP server. These are the two major things that people use for setting up the single sign-on. That means you don't need to sign on to every time. You just have one single access for all the applications that is in your corporate environment. So similarly, you can set up a single sign-on, and this single sign-on setup is a little very complex one. So there are two things that part of the single sign-on. One is service provider, and the other one is identity provider. And service provider is Snowflake, and the identity provider is like Okta, Microsoft Active Directory, or third-party suites like Google G Suite, um, Azure Active Directory, One Login, Ping Identity, Ping One. So these are all the third-party things that can be used for setting up the single sign-on. But these are all paid things. They don't take Gmail for a week of activation. So I did with Microsoft ADS Active Directory, Azure Active Directory. This is what I've done, and then they are now asking me to set up for the payment module. So I'm having trouble with that. So probably if the course is done right in one weekend, there are a couple of things that I want to talk about, and those things are what is that? I'm going to talk about one. Um, what is this masking policies? Two, and then Kafka integration. Three. What else are we missing? Masking policies, Kafka integration. Guys, can you remind me, please? Anything else that we're missing? Yeah. So SCIM migration. So this is where you have all your users and roles in your Azure Active Directory or AWS, and you're trying to migrate them into Snowflake. Okay, this is SCA migration. These three things I'm gonna will have separately as part of an extracurricular thing. So once the training program is done, I'll give a break of 1 week, and the next weekend we'll have this. So some more areas and SCM migration, and then single sign-on or federated authentication. So these are the 4 years, little more that we have to, so little more complex to set up as well. This we are going to talk on the next weekend. Okay. Once the program is done, then we'll have it as an extra thing. Okay. One second. The other day we have written what are all the things, right? Yeah. Okay. This we are going to talk later. We talked about resource monitors. This I am. We need to talk about performance, masking policies, Kafka integration is the one that we need to do later. And Python, I'm going to show you some Python stuff that I've done. Security, currently we are working on it right now. Yeah, grade calculation and user management. So user management is still pending. I have performance, masking policies. This is monitor done. Yeah. So these are the stuff that we need to finish off before calling as your program is done. Okay. So we have security, we have performance, masking policies, grade calculation, user management, snowflake encryption. This is going to take at least 2 days, 2 to 3 days. Okay. Meaning number of hours. So this is going to take one weekend, next weekend for you for sure. So I'm going to finish security this weekend and performance this weekend. Okay. And I have to cover the user management also can be done this week. So, and these two are not much. It takes one session. Okay. So your course will be done by end of next week. Okay. I'm going to take care of this by this week. I think I can cover, if possible, grade calculation as well, or snowflake encryption, any of them. And this one is the one which takes time. The entire weekend, next weekend it takes. So it's important. And if you are working on any environment, so I have to give you a complete, exhaustive overview of procedures. That's where when you're trying to migrate from different sources, right? This helps. So I have many use cases with me, and then I'm going to teach you on that particular thing. The entire weekend, next weekend goes for this, and I have to cover these things. So if I run into any of the things, right? If I cannot finish, these two things will take care in this weekdays, and then by weekend we'll finish this, and this is after the program is done. This is an extra thing that I normally provide to all the folks. So I have to set up, I have a new laptop. Last time I did set up the Kafka, now I have to set up the Kafka integration and then the Python. So there are other old batches also who are not who haven't been. So this SCM is a new thing, and then Kafka integration is a new thing. Masking policies is a new thing. The old batch people also doesn't have this. So I'm gonna call everybody so that we can go through these new topics. Okay. So when it comes to SS4, right, we were talking about. So this IDP is an identity provider. So normally what happens, So for example, if you're logging from Okta, that means the moment you come to the Snowflake URL, you enter your username, password, you are redirected to Okta, and you go there, and then you enter your credentials there, which validates your credentials, and you are back to the Snowflake account. And it's good for all the other Microsoft Active Directory or any of these third-party tools, right? The same thing. This is one. So this is called Snowflake initiated login. That means if you look at this, right? Snowflake initiated login. Login to Snowflake. User goes to Snowflake web interface, chooses a login using IDP configured to your account, Okta, ADFS or custom. So user authenticates the identity provider using the IDP credentials, email address and password. If authentication is successful, the IDP sends a SAML. That means like a HTML, there is a security markup language. So to Snowflake, so that's very, it is encrypted and all this stuff. It's hard to break, and respond to Snowflake to initiate a session and displays the Snowflake web interface. That means it goes, the moment you go, the third party thing comes into picture, you enter your email ID password, and then it comes back again to the Snowflake, and then it opens the session for you. This is the Snowflake initiated login. The same way you can directly log into Okta, into your Okta account, and then whatever the application that you have signed for, they have the URLs there. You click on that, you will have Snowflake also, application that you have signed for in Okta. You can go click on that particular URL, and it, after, because you would have already logged into the account, right? So it opens the Snowflake account, your account, that URL page, and you have to enter the username password. Are you able to follow me, guys? So the second one is you'll be logging into Okta account or Active Directory or Ping One or any other third party that you have already set up. They do have a website as well. You log in with your credentials, and then when you go to their applications, right, it will shows you all the applications that you have signed up. That means if your company has signed up with Okta and you are trying to have single sign-on, you'll have the company name there. You go because you are already logged in, and in your company name there might be many applications like Snowflake, like AWS, like something else. So you click on Snowflake application, and then it opens the Snowflake URL web page, and then you have to enter the credentials, and you are good. Are we good, guys? Okay, anyway, I know you guys are shy in talking to me. That's fine. Yeah. So coming back to, so if you are not talking to me, right, I cannot tell whether you have digested the stuff that I'm talking about or not. I think that you guys are good, and then I'm moving along. Okay.
Shaker, is there any way can you able to show that how can we log in by using Okta?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you, right? I'll be setting up that.
Okay.
I have to buy a paid account,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to set it up. So all the trial accounts are done. And all these third party tools, they don't take Gmail for their evaluation. You should have a company account.
Okay.
So I had one of my own account, and that is utilized. I cannot use it again one more time.
Mm.
So I have signed up for this Active Directory Azure for 6 months, right? That is
Okay.
also done. So now
Okay.
I have to have a paid account because they're very strong in identifying from which computer I'm logging in. I tried all kinds of stuff to have an Azure trial account for 6 months more. No.
Okay.
So that is the reason I couldn't show you this setup. It's pretty simple, it's not a big thing. You go
Okay.
there, and then
Mm.
you configure, and you have to tell which particular uh, in your Okta account, you have to tell which particular application that you are trying to log in, because they already have all the applications. The moment
Okay.
you go and then search for the application you want to set up, it will show you the you can search for Snowflake, and after double clicking on, you'll see the Snowflake icon.
Mm-hmm.
Once you double click on it, right, it will ask you what is the host details and everything. And this is the host. The Snowflake that we are trying to log in is the host, and username, password, and role, and you give all the credentials, and that's it.
Okay.
So even if you
But
directly log into Snowflake, right,
mhm.
it takes you to the third-party account for enabling it, so that it configures internally.
Okay. So is there do we need to set up, or is there any other separate team is there for this
In
kind of
your
thing?
working environment, if you are working as a DBA or a senior architect, you have to guide people. If not, somebody else will set it up for you.
Okay, okay.
So this multi-factor authentication and federated authentication, both are the admin activities. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're working as a DBA, then probably you have to set up. So
Okay,
I'm going to teach you. Don't worry. I'm going to teach you much more apart from SSO, and that is not very much required for you to market yourself right now. So I'm
okay,
gonna. So now those are all the extra things that I give it to the people who join my program. So I told you, right, these are the stuff. This
okay,
SEA migration, Kafka integration, Python. I have done some real-time SQL Server migrations, ad hoc migrations to Snowflake. I'll show you the scripts how I have done, and then I'll walk you through the scenarios.
okay,
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 Snowflake. And then masking policies is a new one where you can mask a column, or you have row level security also.
or role level also we can mask.
Yes, you cannot
Okay,
mask. You can hide the rows.
okay,
You can mask the entire column, but you can filter based on the row. So these two are new things. Row level is
mm-hmm.
especially new. Masking
Mm-hmm.
policy, they have the secure column level masking. It was
Okay,
there, column and row level. So people might ask you if you're a senior guy, right? So this is
okay,
an extra thing that I normally give it to the folks apart from my program.
okay,
Okay.
okay,
And this one I call everybody whomever has not attended, because these new topics, right? Whenever new topic comes, I send out a communication to everybody. Even if your batch is done, after 3 months there is a new topic, and if I am teaching that new topic, I'll send out a communication to you guys as well, so that you can also
okay,
join and learn the new topic. That is what I normally do.
okay,
Okay. So this is not part of the program. These
okay,
things are part of the program. This I have guaranteed you. This is another thing that I'm equipping you with extra knowledge.
okay,
Okay.
okay.
Got it?
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
So right now we are, so the single sign-on is one of them. Okay. I don't have the access to any of the paid accounts. If not, I would have already done that. I've shown to couple of batches. I'm going to show it to, and there are a lot of batches that I did not show. So I'm gonna include everybody, and then I'll try to get a paid account and see if I can do, and then I'll show you the single sign-on. It doesn't take hardly half an hour to set up. But this SCM is a complex one.
Mm-hmm.
Kafka integration is a complex one. This I have done. I'll show you how to. I'll walk you through.
Okay,
And this also I have done. I have to do the row level. I have prepared all the column level things. I have to set up the row level part of it. Once I'm done, I'll show you that.
okay,
So give me a break for 1 week or 10 days. I'll set up a day, and then we'll go over in one weekend. We'll go over these high level topics.
okay,
Okay, cool. Then coming back, so access control framework. So now the first part is network security. Second part is accessing your username and authentication, and the third one is object security. If you look at it, right, how do you handle objects, how do you secure them? There are two levels of object security. First one is DAC, discretionary access control, and second one is role based access control. So this discretionary access control is something like you are the owner of the object. That means you have the create table. Like I'm giving an example, you can create an object in any of the schema. Once you create an object, right, then you are the owner of that particular schema, and then you can grant privileges on that particular object to anybody in the account.
Okay. Shekhar, one doubt.
Hmm.
Suppose schema owner should be me or
No, no, no,
object owner is.
object schema owner might be different, you are
Mhm.
different, but
Okay.
they have given you the privileges to create some objects. Once you
Okay.
create an object, right, then you are the boss of the object. So
Okay.
the role that you use to create the object. So in Snowflake there is no option of users creating objects. So the entire Snowflake is based on the role based access. You create a role and you grant the role to a user. The user has to log in as a using role, and he has to create the objects and all this stuff. And if you have the privileges, you can create it. And whomever creates the objects, they will be the owners. So you logged in as ETL admin, and
Mhm.
then you created a table in the schema. Then ETL admin is the owner of that
Okay.
particular object. So
Okay.
ownership plays a key role in creating the objects. Reason, owner can grant permissions on the object.
Okay.
Okay, that is called discretionary access control.
Okay.
Okay, and
If I
then
have,
yeah,
sorry, if I have a schema access, so I can able to access on the under the schema whatever tables is there. Should I have permissions or
yeah, you should have permissions. If not, you cannot, right, unless until you have the privileges to access that particular schema.
by default
Mm,
it won't? It
no,
won't.
no, why then that is a security, right?
Okay.
If you have 10 different databases and then
If
100
if
schemas,
mhm.
and whichever related to you, the admin should give you a privilege. That is there with any other database, right?
Yeah, suppose my doubt is I'm the schema owner. So under that schema, whatever tables is there, whatever objects is there.
Then you can see all the objects. But
Okay, that
you
is the
can
thing.
see the objects and
Hmm.
then you cannot access them. You might
Okay.
be owner, but you don't have the privilege to access them. Somebody has
Okay.
to explicitly grant you.
Okay. Okay. That is my question.
Okay,
I'm clear. Thank you.
no problem. So coming back to the access control, right? There is one called securable object. That means an entity to which access can be granted. That means if you are trying to grant a privilege, to whom you are granting, to which object you are granting, that is called securable object. So you normally grant it to grant it to a role, grant it to a user, grant it to the account level, and then database and schema. All these objects, they are all called securable objects. Okay, if you come and look at here this screen, this picture, right? These are the securable objects. Can you see them? You can grant a role to a user. You can grant a privilege to a role. You can grant privileges on a warehouse to somebody. You can grant resource monitors to a warehouse and database. Underneath the database, you have schema, and underneath the schema, you have all these objects. So, user, role, warehouse, resource monitor, and database, these are all part of one. They are on the same level. Underneath the account, you have all of them. Underneath the database, you have the other objects. Are we clear?
Yeah, Shekhar.
That means you are creating, you are giving privileges. So grant, create warehouse to a role. Then that particular role can create a warehouse, and then create a resource monitor to a role. and the role can create a resource monitor. A role by itself, you are creating a role, and you can grant privileges to the role, and the role can grant it to a user. So these are all the things that you can. So that is, these are all the securable objects. This is so, and so these are the levels. Underneath the account, you have user, role, warehouse, resource monitor, database. Underneath the database, you have schema. Underneath the schema, you have all the different levels, different objects. Okay, securable object means an object on which you can grant privileges so that the object can be created or accessed. Got it? And coming back to the roles, right? There are about 5 different roles, default roles in Snowflake. What are those 5 default roles? Let me log in. Okay, so yes, I'm having my chai and then teaching. You would have some slurping
Okay.
sound. Bear with me, please. Okay, and then
Okay.
coming back, if you look at it, how many roles do we have? See here, 5 of them. These are the default 5 rows that you have. One is account admin, one is sysadmin, one is public, one is security admin, and user admin. Okay, so these are the default roles, and let's go back and then talk about them. Account admin is a super user. You can have so account admin encapsulates sysadmin and security admin. If you look at here, right? Can you see the hierarchy? So by default, account admin will have some privileges. Most of the privileges in the entire Snowflake account is owned by sysadmin and security admin. Creating databases, creating schemas, accessing the objects, all the database level, schema level things are all privileges are owned by sysadmin. Creating roles, creating users, managing roles, dropping roles, and all of them, right? They're all managed by security admin. Okay, so when you grant these two to account admin with grant option, that means account admin also can grant it to somebody else, or if you grant this role to the account admin, right?
Speaker,
What? Yeah.
Speaker, sir, sorry to interrupt you. Many times he used to say like account admin, don't use account admin, go to either security admin or system sysadmin to use create a database or something. What is the reason to say such? Is there anything related to this?
No, see, account admin is normally will be given to only 2 people for the account, and those 2 people will be high level people like a senior director or VP or one technical guy who is the principal architect or somebody who is managing the account. So these the passwords are very difficult, and when you are trying to when you create objects under the account, right? And when you want to access them, whomever has the account admin can only grant the privileges to access to other folks, and every time you cannot go to them, right? And it's not secure to be having account admin. So that is not the policy. What Snowflake suggests is that is not the procedure, or and that is not the best practice, because you cannot have high level people creating objects and then you are asking them every time to grant privileges. That doesn't happen in a way. And there are different roles for each, different responsibilities for each role. Sysadmin can do this, security admin can this. You just have account admin so that it's super user and it can be managed, it can drop, it can create roles, you can do all kinds of stuff. So you have to make sure that super user can handle anything. So that is the reason we keep them aside.
Okay, got it, sir.
Okay. So now if you look at it, right? So account admin has some minimal, or there might be some privileges that are only account admin can give. But security admin, sysadmin has many of them. When you grant a role to another role, that is a role hierarchy. What are the privileges that you have to the sysadmin are also can be performed by account admin, right? If you look at this simple example, right? You have role 1 and you have privilege C, that means you have access to table C. This is role 3 and this role 2 and role 1. Role 3 has privileges to access table C and role 2 has, when you grant this role to role 2, right? Role 3 to role 2, by default role 2 can also access table C. And then you have granted explicitly privileges on table B to role 2 and you have given role 2 to role 1, and role 1 can by default, because of the role hierarchy, it can access table C, it can access table B, and you have directly given table A here. And if you give it to user, the user can access whenever it uses role 1, the user can access table A, table B, table C. This is the role hierarchy. Using the role hierarchy, you will get the privileges for accessing the objects. And then this is what it is. So coming back, account admin role encapsulates security admin and sysadmin. Okay. And security admin, it can create roles, manage roles, modify roles, drop roles, and apart from that, it can create resource monitors. If you go and then select switch role, I'm going to security. Okay. And then you see an account tab here, right? This account tab comes only for account admin as well as security admin. If you click on account tab, the billing information is not seen. Apart from that, you will have the other tab. The first one, usage, is not seen because only usage is allowed to account admin. The other tabs are, you can look at the billing information, you can create users, create and modify roles, you can set up network policies, you can look at the sessions that are running in your system. Okay. And then resource, you can set up resource monitors and you can set up reader accounts. So these are the things that a security admin can also do. Okay. You can modify, grant, revoke privileges to any role and all this stuff that can be done. So all this, so whenever we want to create a user, you want to create a role, then that's done by security admin. And then public is the pseudo role. That means the role that has been granted to everybody. The moment you sign up to a Snowflake account, right, you will be able to see three databases. One is, where is this? This is Snowflake sample data, you have UtilDB, and you have DemoDB. These three things will be seen. The moment you access sign up a trial account, you will see those things, right? That means those three databases are part of a Snowflake account, which they have granted the privileges to a role public. So, and by default, you have the public account, public role. So you will be able to see all this. You are able to see all these three databases. If you grant it to public, that can be in the entire account, everybody can see it. Okay, that is the pseudo role public. And custom role is something like, guys, can you hold on for a minute please? Sorry guys, I have to take a call. So the next thing is just custom role. Whenever you can create a custom role, so normally we do custom roles in the entire organization, right? You are not given sysadmin, account admin, security admin. Any of these roles will not be given to you at any cost when you start working for the company. The custom roles are created and the custom roles are granted to you. I'll show you two examples. One, how do you grant privileges in a real-time scenario. Number two, how do you create a hierarchy of roles and then do it in a real-time sim. I have a small sample scenario that you can understand it, and I'll give you an exercise. And if you do that exercise right, you will know 90% of, I cannot say 90 maybe, 70% of the privileges, how the privilege thing works, and you will become much more familiar with the. So you do that one single exercise, you are good. Okay. You will get to know hands on, but once you start doing the exercise, you will be baffled, or you don't know how to go about. You have to go search and documentation, look at my slides, and then come back and then do it. You will have a tough time, but if you do that exercise, you're good with the privileges part of it. Okay. So, and then, and there is another thing called user admin. Recently what happened, you have this junior admins and senior admins. There is a, so every time if you are trying to give it to just for the user creation or role creation, you don't have, you, they just bifurcated the um, privileges. So like sysadmin can create a database, right? And sysadmin you have granted it to account admin. Account admin can also now create a database. So but where is the privilege lying? Which particular role owns the creation of database? Guys, I'm asking you a question. Sysadmin can create a database. That is the original privilege for the sysadmin. And you have granted sysadmin to account admin. Now account admin can also create a database. But who owns this privilege? Which role owns this privilege?
Sysadmin.
Sysadmin. Similarly, what they have done is right. They have created another role called user admin, and they have granted the create user and create role privileges to user admin, and they have granted the user admin to security admin. Now the security admin can also create users and can also create roles, right? But
Okay.
they have bifurcated such a way that all junior admins can have junior folks can just create users, create roles, and then if you want to manage them, if you want to modify them or anything else, then the security admin. So you can give for a junior guy only the user admin, and for senior admins you can have security admin. Got it?
Yes.
That's the only thing. If you look at this particular diagram, right? So this is the old diagram. You'll have one more box here which says user admin. So user admin, all the privileges of user admin are encapsulated into security admin. All the security admin, sysadmin are encapsulated into account admin. And public is for everybody. And the other important part that you have to remember is whenever you create a custom role, you have to grant it to account admin or sysadmin. Reason, if you create a custom role and if you create some objects in the custom role, account admin cannot also access those objects. You created a custom role and you have given to a user, and that user have created some objects in that particular schema, and who can access that particular objects? Only the role who has created, because he has created and then he can access that. So account admin and security admin cannot access the objects which are created by the custom role unless until you grant that custom role to sysadmin or account admin. Then only so it is customary in any corporate environment where the moment you create a role, that should be granted to sysadmin or account admin. So that is the reason if you look at this arrow marks, right? Custom role, custom all are granted to sysadmin. Without that, account admin cannot also access the objects. If somebody has created and then he is gone, and those objects you cannot access. Okay, and
Shekhar
then
sir, I have a question here. Suppose in our this is a database we have access to it, and there is a reason to, or there is a scenario to test it to create dummy tables and all. And how about that tables? If they create and drop table, will that be an issue?
no. If you have the privilege to create table and drop table, then you can do that.
Okay,
It depends upon
okay,
the role that you're using, right? If you're using an admin role, for example, ETL admin has. I'll show you the roles. What kind of roles in a corporate environment I'll have. I have my. I'm not supposed to show it to you ethically, but I just want to make sure you can visualize how things work in the real-time environment, right? I'll stop the recording and I'll show you my office content for you. Okay,
okay, okay, sir.
cool,
Thank you.
no problem. So, and then we let's look at the account. So account admin part of it, it's important. It's a high level super user kind of thing, right? Account admin, you have to grant it to at least two people, and all the account admins should have multi-factor authentication enabled. These are the two things that people ask in an interview or in the snow pro exam or anything. So that is the customary thing also, that is the best practice. You should have the account admin given to two people at least. So when you give it to two people, right? If one person lost a password, the next guy can reset the password. The reason is, right, account admin, when you lost your password, if you want to reset, if you want to talk to Snowflake and then reset your password, right? It takes 2 days. Until then, whatever the new things in your development or production environment, they're all gone. You cannot do anything. So that also I given. It takes 2 business days. And if you have identified on Saturday, sorry, on Friday, then you have to wait until Monday. Tuesday only you'll get it. If somebody. So that is the reason you have to grant account admin to two people with the password, so that if somebody forgets the password, the other guy can reset. So that is the reason normally we will give account admin in a corporate environment, one to a technical guy, one to a non-technical guy. Non-technical guy, they won't use it, they just keep the password, and the technical guy forgets or something, right? They'll ask the non-technical guy to log in and they reset the password. Okay. So account admin role can view and operate on all objects in the account, can view and manage Snowflake billing and credit data, and can stop any running SQL statement. So it can kill any session. That is the advantage of it. Okay. So all users assigned to account admin role should be required to have multi-factor authentication. So this, to help prevent account administrators from inadvertently using the account admin role to create objects, assign these users additional roles and designate to one of these roles as the default. Don't make account admin as default. Give them the sysadmin or anything, so that the moment they log in, instead of getting the objects being created by account admin, it will be created by the custom role. If you make the default, the moment they log in, the default role will be enforced and they'll be using that particular role. Okay. So the password part also I've told you, two business rules. Make sure avoid using account admin role. These are the best practices. Don't use account admin. Reason is it becomes difficult, and then if you want to access them, the account admin has to give privileges, all this stuff, right? Okay. And this is about the account admin and enforcement model. Whenever you are trying to connect to Snowflake, what is the role that you are connecting to? So the moment you log in, right? If you are a user has a default role. That is the first one. The moment I log in to my Snowflake account, so I'll get sysadmin. Or for all of you, the default role is sysadmin. Can you see, right? What is the default role here for my user?
Default
Yeah,
role is
sysadmin.
sysadmin is my default role.
Mm.
So whenever I create users, I can associate a default role uh, to the user. So the moment I log in, if no role is mentioned as part of the connection properties, the default role comes into the picture. And when I am trying to connect to any session, I can pass the role name as well. Even though if my default role is sysadmin, if I pass a role for the connection, and then that becomes the default role in the session.
Okay.
Like snowsql hyphen a account name hyphen u username and then hyphen role name. Even though the user has a default role, you pass a role that becomes the session role for that session. So you can bypass your default role by passing a role. That's what I mean to say. Okay,
Okay.
and then you
One
can.
doubt.
Mhm.
Sorry, Sekar.
Mhm.
How do we set up that default? Sysadmin, you set up default, right?
No, no. Then when you the next topic, right? User management. I'll show you how
No.
to set up default roles for
Okay.
users. When
Okay.
we talk about how do we create users and all this stuff, right? We'll talk about
Sure.
it. Okay. And then the other thing that we're talking about is if no role was specified. So if a role was specified part of the connection, that role will become the session role in the session. You can still go and change the roles. That is not a problem. But whenever you are trying to run something in the background, you can pass the role as a parameter so that your default instead of your default role, that role will become uh, the role in the session. Okay. There is a function also called session in the role. I forgot the name. That gives you what is the session that is running in the role. What role has been used to log into session. Okay. There is a function as well. And if no role was specified and default role has been set for the connecting user, that becomes the current role in the session. If no role was specified and a default role has not been set, the connecting user, the system role public will be used. So if you pass a role, that role will be used in the session. If you don't pass a role, the default role of the user will be used in the session. If the user doesn't have a default role, then public is the role that will be used. Okay. So accessing DB objects, you can, if you want to access a database, if you want to access a schema, if you want to access a warehouse, you have to use certain privileges. If you want to read the data from a table, what is the privilege that you normally use to?
Select.
Yes. Similarly, if you want to use a database in Snowflake, you can use usage is the name of the privilege. Usage and database, and you have to grant usage on schema. And if you want to use a warehouse, right, you can use usage on the warehouse. These are the three important things normally we use. So you have to remember usage and database, usage and schema, select and table. How do you access database objects? These are the privileges that you need. Okay,
Okay.
and this is
So, one more doubt, Shekhar.
okay.
Is there any role insert or update like that? Anything?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I'll show you all the roles.
Okay. Okay. I thought
So what?
you told only select, right? And that is the reason I'm asking.
No, I asked you. I did not tell
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
So for you to understand something similar to select to a table, if you want to
Okay.
access a database and schema, usage is the name of the privilege,
Okay.
and usage is the name of the privilege on a warehouse. Grant usage on this database to a role means whomever has the role can access the database. Grant usage on um, database dot schema to a role means that's it. And
Okay.
the syntax for granting the roles is very simple, plain English.
Okay.
Grant select on table to role. Plain English. All the syntaxes, if you want to grant anything, right? This simple
Mm.
and plain English.
Okay.
Managing custom roles. Okay. By default, not even the account admin role can modify or drop objects created by custom role. The account admin can view the objects, but they cannot modify or drop the custom role. So the custom role must be granted to the account admin. We don't grant it to account admin, we normally grant it to sysadmin directly or preferably to any other role in the hierarchy with the sysadmin role as the parent. The sysadmin role is managed by account admin role. You understood that? That's what I explained you, right? Whenever you create custom rules, that has to be granted. That is the mandatory part in Snowflake. Okay. And then, so in Snowflake, there is another thing called future grants. For example, I have given access on this particular schema. So if I give access on this particular schema, then you can go and see all the tables. I've given all the select access on all the tables to you. But what if new tables get created? You won't have the privileges on this new table. That is not the case in any of the other databases in Oracle. Or once you have the select on the schema, then whomever creates new tables, then you can automatically see them. But in Snowflake, that is not the case. So you have to specifically grant future grants. In future, if somebody does it, in future, if somebody does it, how do you handle things? That is the future grants. Okay. Grant select on future tables in schema S1 to role R1. That means in future, if somebody is trying to create a tables, grant it to the role R1. Grant the select privileges on all new tables in schema to role R2. That is few tables. That is grant select on future tables, whomever is created. So if you can grant it, so whomever creates the new tables, automatically those are all granted to the role. Okay. So grant select, you can, if you want to revoke select on future tables, revoke select on all tables. If you want to grant only select and insert, you can say grant select insert on future tables. So these are all on the future tables part of it. Okay. So whenever you're trying to grant the future grants, right, there are some restrictions. You can grant it to them. You cannot grant on shares or named stages. If somebody creates in future a stage or a share, you cannot grant them. Whenever somebody creates in future a stage or share, then you have to manually grant them. So whenever you're trying to swapping or renaming, right, you rename to a different one, then it's not possible automatically to get the role to identify that. You have to go and explicitly grant on the renamed one. Or if you have swapped between two things, then still you have to go and then grant the privileges again. In future, if somebody is swapping this in grant privileges, no, that cannot be happen. In future, if somebody is renaming an object, grant privileges, no, that is not happening. And then only one single role can have ownership on any of the objects. So that means when you are trying in future, if somebody creates an object and the owner should be a particular role, and you can grant this to one single role only. You cannot grant ownership privilege to multiple roles. No more than one future grant of the ownership privilege is allowed for each secure rule object. So you can give it to only one single guy. I mean one single role. Okay. And then so in there is, if you are trying to come back to sysadmin, I'll say sysadmin. Okay. And then databases, SFDB, and then I'm going to create a schema. create. Can you see one called managed access here?
Yes,
When
Shankar.
when you create a schema with managed access, then the DAC is invalid in that particular schema. That means whomever is the owner of the schema, he can only grant privileges on the objects in that particular schema. And even though you have permissions or privileges to create objects uh, like a regular schema, you cannot still grant. Only the schema owner can grant. That is called managed access. The ownership of all the objects lying in that particular schema will be managed by schema owner. For example, I have created, there are two roles, ETL admin and then dev admin. So two roles, ETL admin and dev admin. And the schema owner is dev admin. But ETL admin still can go and create objects in that particular. But ETL admin cannot grant the privileges on the objects that it has created to somebody else. Only the dev admin can do that. That is called managed access. Got it?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about future grants, right? Ownership privilege on objects can only be given to a subordinate role of the schema owner. That is the role that has the ownership privilege on schema. That means whenever, so the if you have a managed access and you are trying to transfer in future to any of the role, if you are trying to give ownership, right, you have to give it to the schema owner only. Okay, and you can revoke from the same thing. Okay. So, and then probably when we talked about cloning, right? We guys, are you able to digest whatever I'm talking, right?
Yes.
I need a yes from everybody. All the other folks are silent.
I guess Shekhar, we can digest.
Cool then, yeah. Thank you. So whenever we clone, we talked about cloning, right? Whenever we clone, if you clone an independent object, individual object, the privileges are not carried forward. When you clone a schema or a database, then the privileges are carried forward. I'm just trying to remind that here. Okay. So make sure when you trying to clone, use copy grants option. Create or replace employee emp table. Clone other schema.emp copy grants. This is the command that you use. When you say copy grants, automatically grants will get copied. If not, the grants won't copy. Or you have to identify and then explicitly grant select insert to whatever the roles that you have given an employee, right? You have to grant it to them. Okay, that is pretty much about it. So object access with business functions. That means how do they so basically this is another example of role hierarchy, right? So yeah, there is a role called unlist basic, unlist advanced, like a junior admin and a senior admin. Grant role unlist basic to unlist advanced. You are granting this to the other one. And then create role DB1, DB2. There are two roles that you're setting up. And then basic is given to given something similar to user admin is given to user 1, security admin is given to user 2 in a similar analogy. The same thing here. So you can grant privileges on DB1 to role basic, and then the role is granted to somebody role unlist advanced, and you can take all this stuff. So this is a hierarchy that normally works in the Snowflake environment. Okay, and this is what I've explained right now. But the other thing, right? So grant the custom role to the object. So first, this is another example. Create role, custom role. If you're trying to create a role, what should be your role in the session?
Sysadmin.
Or else
Security admin.
Yes.
Yes, sysadmin cannot create roles. Security admin can create roles. And which role can also create roles apart from security admin?
Super
Admin,
user, account admin.
account admin.
Account admin can also do that. And then one more role. Security admin can create roles. Account admin can create roles. One more role can also create roles. So, what is the hierarchy of security admin? Do you have any other roles underneath the security admin?
User role.
User admin.
User admin. Yeah.
Yeah, user admin can also create roles. So, whenever you're trying to create this role, create role custom comment is equal to so and so, right? You're trying to role. That means you have to say before running this command, use role security admin, use role user admin, or use role account admin, and then run this command. Then only the role gets created. Are you able to follow me? Okay. So, and then grant
So
usage. Yeah,
create so to create custom role, we can choose either of the four roles, right?
either of the four roles. How,
User,
user
security,
admin, security
account,
admin, account, three of them only.
three. Okay. Three.
Sysadmin, you cannot create roles.
Okay. User, security, and
Whenever,
account admin.
yeah, whenever you want to create a role, custom role. So I'll show you an example if you want to. Where is my, what happened to my account? Yeah, worksheet. So, so what is my current role here?
Sysadmin.
Where did you see the sysadmin part of it?
At the top right.
At the top and here also.
Yeah, what is this role and what is this role?
The above one is the default one, and the down one is the one which we are in the session, which we are
Yeah,
using
this
for
is the,
this.
Yeah.
yeah, context
Particular to
sensitive
this
menu.
sheet.
Yeah, only
Yes.
to this worksheet. And each worksheet can have different roles, different databases, and all this stuff. You know that, right? So
Yes.
I'm gonna say create role ETL underscore admin. Can I do that? See, insufficient privilege to operate an account. If I want to create a role, what is the role that I have to use?
Use the role, security admin or account admin and user admin.
The moment I say use role secure, oops. See, my the role got changed. Security admin. Create role ETL admin. See, ETL admin. I can use role user admin. I can go ahead and ETL dev. See, role got created. So you should be the current role in session. There is another function. I don't exactly remember this. Session in role in session. I don't.
Current role. Current role.
Current role will give you what is the current role in session. You can figure out programmatically what is the role in session. User admin. Okay.
Okay.
So here I have created a role. Grant usage and database to a role. Grant all on schema. So I'm giving all the permissions on this particular scheme. But when you give this, right, when you create the future part of it, those are not accessible. You have to explicitly go and grant uh, all on future. Grant future, I don't exactly remember the syntax. You have to give a future grant to access all the things that are that you are going to access in schema as well. So for now, it will give you all the objects until this particular time what are all the objects that you'll have access to. If somebody creates in future, you won't have that. You should explicitly granting them, or you should have a future privileges. Okay. So grant all on schema to role custom. So the custom role will have all the privileges in the schema. Grant usage and warehouse. Without a warehouse, you cannot run the sequels. Can I say select current user from without the okay? What is my warehouse? It's already here. I don't want to. I cannot
Remove it.
see.
No, we can remove it.
How do you remove that? I never tried.
I was also not but thinking we can at least suspend, right? Okay, it is suspended only. Not okay. It's
No,
only
that
detecting
means it's auto resume. So the moment I run a query, right, it goes and then I have to change
we
the
can
parameter.
suspend it
Anyway,
permanently, no, for now.
so my question is, if I use current user, select current user, does it use my warehouse or does it not use my warehouse?
I think it won't
It will
use.
not use warehouse, I think so.
Okay, how
Yeah,
about
it
show
is.
table? Show
Yeah, it
tables.
uses.
These
It
are metadata,
uses.
right? Now it
Huh?
will use.
Show table
It's all
uses,
about
but current
metadata.
user doesn't uses. Show table is a part of. It's not a part of metadata, right?
It's a part of metadata. That's why it won't use that warehouse.
Yes, show tables also won't do that. And then, so if you are trying to say, if I want to see filter what are all the data in my previous query, how do you read the result sets of a previous query?
It will be in the cache memory. Results.
Table of results scan. Yes, Chandrakeshwar, you are correct. Result scan of -1. So this gives what is my previous query here?
Show tables.
Yes, I got this. So if you go and then query this, right? Look at the history part of it. So do you see any size here?
No, no.
The size means null means you are not using the warehouse. If I go and then say select star from EMP where dbt NO is equal to 20. EMP does not exist. EMP is there, right? Maybe
I haven't selected schemas here.
select database is also not there. Yeah. If you run this, right? So if you go to the history, can you see? Okay. So if you are just running this particular thing, right? Result scan, it won't use the warehouse, but if you filter from it, where I can filter from it, right? Where you have to use double quotes when you are trying to query from result set. See, now I'm reading from this was my last query. I'm running from it. I'm filtered. So if you go and then query the history part of it, right? See, virtual warehouse is used. If you just plainly select star from the until here, it won't use us any virtual warehouse. And if you're trying to filter something from the virtual warehouse using the result scan function, then it uses virtual warehouse. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, it is clear.
Okay. Then so now we have created and virtual warehouses also. If you don't have virtual warehouse, you cannot run any queries. But you can only run queries that are part of the metadata. And you can run all DDL commands without virtual warehouse. Create, alter, drop, truncate. So these are all the DDL commands. DDL commands doesn't need virtual warehouses. All the DDL commands are run without virtual warehouses, and then the show commands are run without virtual warehouses, and then the result scan without filtering the data, it's run without the virtual warehouses. So these are all the metadata operations. Whenever you are running your virtual warehouses with metadata operations, it doesn't use user created virtual warehouses. It uses snowflake virtual warehouses. Are we clear?
Yes.
Okay, can you repeat the last point, Shikhar?
What was the last point I told? All the
Don't
metadata
use,
operation. Is it the one that you're asking me?
no, actually, it won't use the custom created warehouses we said, right?
Oh, so whenever you're running any queries, right? Snowflake by default needs a warehouse. For the metadata operations, it doesn't use our warehouses that we have created, like compute WH, compute small, medium. Those are all user created warehouses. So Snowflake doesn't use for running the query metadata operation. It doesn't use our user created warehouses. It uses its own warehouses. Snowflake warehouses. There are Snowflake warehouses that are not seen to us. It uses its own warehouses to run that. Because without the compute power, right, how can you run a query? All the metadata operations are performed by Snowflake warehouses, and the queries, the non-metadata operations are performed by the user created warehouses that we are charged for.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Okay. And then, so whenever you're trying to grant a privilege to a user, right? So Snowflake has to disable the user and then grant it. Alter username, set disable true, grant role custom, alter user set disabled. What is setting the default role to the user, and then disabled is equal to false. So we don't normally do this in a corporate environment or in a real-time scenario. We just directly grant them. The reason he might have other roles, and if you're setting up for the first time, that might be it makes sense. If you're already using, you have granted some privileges or roles to the user, he might be working on something, and you cannot disable the user. If you're creating for the first time, you can do that. But if not, also that's fine. You can directly grant to the user that role. Okay. So yeah, and access control privileges. This is important. So there are two kinds of roles in Snowflake. One is global. Sorry, there are two kinds of privileges in Snowflake. One is global privileges, and the other one is non-global privileges. Okay. So I cannot have all of them in my slide deck. That is the reason I have given the a link to the documentation. So if you look at it, right, these are the global privileges. That means applying a masking policy. The global privileges are on the account. Whenever you are trying to create or grant privileges, then you have say in account. So if I want the ETL admin to create databases, grant create database, sorry, on account, not in account, sir, on account to role ETL admin. Then he can go on because these global privileges are on the account level. And when we looked at it, right, the securable objects part of it, so those are all account level. So these are all the account level privileges. Creating a masking policy, creating a user, create role, manage grants, create warehouse, and create warehouse must be granted by account admin role. If anybody wants to create an account warehouse, then it has to be, you should have the create warehouse. So for the first time when you're trying to set up your system from the scratch and you're setting up an admin custom role, then logging into account admin and grant this to that particular admin role. Grant create warehouse to that particular admin, because every time you cannot use account admin, so you will be granting this create warehouse to that particular admin. So create data exchange. Data exchange is something like, in data sharing, when we talked about, right, there are two things. One is, we have seen it, data marketplace. It's public thing. You can go sell your data, buy data. There are a lot of free content. So that's just to have the data sharing between a common platform like a stock exchange kind of thing. And data exchange is something like, you can have a sharing between the employees of your account, whether for example it's an insurance company and there are agents all across the India, and then you want to have only the sharing between the employees, that is called data exchange. Okay, that that is one here. Create data exchange, create database on account to a role, create integration. So there are three integrations. This is an interview question, guys. It has been asked to me. I couldn't tell them properly. I told only storage integration, and then I did not tell. So notification is a new one. Security integration is also there. Whenever you are trying to set up SCIM or single sign-on, you will have an integration. So there are three integrations, and if you want to create, we have the privilege for integrations. We have to use it. And if you want to create a network policy, or if you want to execute a task, that is also global privilege. So if you look at here, must be granted by account admin means, for the first time when you're trying to build, so you have to use this to an admin, grant it to an admin. Monitor execution of the task, that means pipes. That means if you want to look at the metadata of what, so if you want to query the metadata, then you should have monitor privileges. Then only you can go and look at the history of the task, how many jobs have been run, how many tasks have been run, and everything. Create share, import share, override share in restriction. That means if you are trying to share between business critical to non-business critical, then probably you can override, because that is not a normal thing. You can override. Create account, this is for reader account. Monitor usage. So if you want to have grants ability to monitor account level usages and historical information for databases and whatever. So this, if you grant this monitor usage, right, you have the snowflake database. Do you remember the snowflake database that we have? When you log into account admin, you'll see another database called snowflake database. Can you do you guys?
Yeah, yeah, which has sample data, right?
No, sample data is something else. So this is a sample data, and if you go on then change it to account admin, right, you will see another thing called snowflake database. This is the database which has all the details about your account, metadata, entire metadata about your account. It has four schemas in it: account usage, the information schema. Now they have added data sharing usage. This was not there before. Account usage. This is very recent, I guess, maybe 2 weeks or a month or so. Organization usage, reader account usage. We're going to talk about this in the credits. Snowflake, I have already given that particular thing, right? Credit management, credit calculations, which has Snowflake database. We'll talk in detail about this schemas and all this stuff. And this can be only accessed by account admin. And in your environment, you cannot grant it to account admin to everybody, right? If you say import privileges, then they can access this Snowflake metadata. So, for example, billing, and if somebody is looking at the billing part of it, right, they cannot be account admin to log in, right? You can give only the access to Snowflake database so that they can go and look at the billing part of it, like a billing manager. That particular grant is this one. What is that one? monitor usage. Enabling non-account administrators to monitor usage and billing history. Huh? And you can say all, right? All the global privileges will be granted to you. Log in as account admin, grant all on account to role some dev admin or QA admin or prod admin, right? Then all the privileges will be granted to that. Global privileges will be granted to that particular admin role. Are you clear so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then these are the user level privileges. So ownership, monitor, ability to view the login history of the user. If somebody wants to log in see the login history, when was it logged in and all this stuff, then we should have grant monitor to a role and grant that role to a user, then he can see the other people. And what are the role privileges? Ownership is the only thing. And did I forget one more step, right? This we talked about. I have missed one more thing. Yeah, no. This is after this only. Okay, good. And these are all the other privileges that you have. Virtual warehouse privileges, you should have modify to resize, increasing the size. Monitor to look at the metadata. When was it run, what time, everything. To look at the metadata of that particular thing. Operate, suspend, all these operations. Usage to use that particular warehouse. All privileges. Ownership means who is the owner, which role is the owner to create or who can grant privileges on this particular warehouse to somebody else. That is the ownership. Okay. So integration, how do you create integration on any objects? Network policy privileges, data exchange privileges, all of them. So that is the reason I have given, and some of the important is right. So database, what you can have and modify the database, altering any settings of the database, monitor, describe metadata. If you want to see any metadata in any of these things, you should have the monitor part of it. And usage, and you should have create schema to create a schema, enables creating a new schema on database, including cloning a schema. Imported privileges enable roles other than the owning roles to access and share database applies only to shared database. Imported privileges for creating share. So if you are trying to grant a particular, so create a share out of a table or a secured view in this database, right? Then you should have the imported privileges to create a share out of it. So that is the privilege. All is all, ownership is fine. And then comes the schema. Schema has many of them. Modify, monitor, usage, create table, create external table, create view, create materialized view, create masking policy, create row policy, create stage, create file format, create sequence, create function, all the objects you have it. And these are the privileges on a table. Insert, update, truncate, delete, references, ownership. References is for foreign keys and all this stuff. External table, views, you can select only. Okay, and then stage, usage on the stage, read and write on the stage, all privileges. File format, usage, you can use the file format, all ownership. Pipe, monitor, operate means you can suspend or resume, monitor means look at the metadata of the pipes, and ownership. Stream, the same thing, select, ownership. Task, monitor, operate, ownership. So these are main privileges that you can on the objects. You have to look at this URL to know what are all the objects. I cannot go to each and every object and explain you in detail. I have covered most of them to make sure that you can understand it. Okay, and once these particular things are done, right, how do you know what are the privileges that are granted to a particular role? This is very important. This comes very handy when you are really working in the environment. So what are the privileges? So you use a role and you're not able to query a particular table. How do you check whether that particular role has privileges to access the table or not? Are you able to follow me, right? If somebody said, okay, this particular table has been granted to this role, or you want to check whether this role has the privilege to access that particular table, then how do you check that? Show grants to role. So these are very important. Show grants on schema. So let's go and run this. So if you want to see what are all the privileges that are given to your sysadmin, how do you do that? Show grants to role sysadmin. These are all the grants. Create database, create warehouse, ownerships, and all this stuff. Okay. And show grants to role. Show grants on role. That means this role has been given account admin. Account admin has given use privilege usage. So who has granted this privilege to the account admin kind of thing? So if you look at this, right, you have the privilege called usage granted on role name sysadmin, granted to role sysadmin, grantee name account admin. So account admin has given usage privilege to this role. Okay, the same thing. So if you show grants to role account admin, right? It has all the role, all the privileges. And you see, right, there are some account level privileges here. Okay. And if I want to filter and see only the account level, account related privileges, how can I do that? Guys, now I want to see only the grants that are given to account admin, which has account level privileges. How can I query that? Guys, any clue?
Mm.
It's case sensitive. However, the column looks like you have to use the same way. ACCOUNT. Whenever you're running with show, and if you want to look at the results, filter the results and all these things, only way is result scan. Okay. Show tables result set, you can only use result scan to fetch that, filter it and all this stuff. Okay. So show grants on schema. What are all the grants given? Show grants on schema to score. Show grants to role. Show grants to user. So sysadmin, when I go and say show grants on schema sf db.sf underscore schema, I have ownership usage. Show grants to schema. What are all the things? No, on only. Show grants on schema to, this is not a role, right? So show grants to user yes mode. I have account admin role. Okay. So these are all show grants on schema, show grants on schema, show grants to role. This is important. Show grants to role, which tells you all the, and when you say show grants to role and you have 100 tables, 1,000 tables in it, if you want to see whether this particular table has any grants or not. How do you run that? Sysadmin, and then you will see all this, right? And you'll have the role, and then you have to go and see the table name, file format, account database, right? You have to do sfdb, and then no. So granted on database, right? Ownership is, I forgot that. So there is a simple way to check whether a particular table has this particular role or not. I'll send you, I'll give you the query in afternoon. I forgot that particular syntax to get that. I'm not. So I was not working as an admin. I was an architect, right? So I'm not very familiar with syntaxes. So I can get you that. And then what else? Read-only roles. How do you set up read-only roles? You can go ahead and then usage on a database, usage on a schema, select on all tables to read-only role, usage on a warehouse, and grant it to your role, grant it to user. So then you can go on. So you have to just give usage on database, usage on schema, select on all tables. And if you want to have future, select on all future tables to that one. And managed access schema, we have already spoken about. I told you, right? Whenever you try to create a managed access schema, the schema owner becomes the boss of the schema. And then if you look at it, right, where can you create it from? These are the differences. If you look at it, this is important. Okay, who can, when in the managed access schema, who, what role can play what operations? Something like, can the role can grant object privileges in a regular schema, can grant object privileges in manager schema. So sysadmin, no. Who can grant privileges? Whomever is the owner of the object can grant privileges. If sysadmin is the owner, sysadmin can grant. In our scenario, in a trial environment, sysadmin is the owner, sysadmin can grant. But in a regular scenario, it cannot grant. Whomever is the owner of that particular object, they can only grant. Security admin or higher, security admin and then account admin can grant privilege on a regular schema. Okay, database owner, no. Even though database the schema is under the database, no. Schema owner, no. Whomever is the owner of the schema. So can, this is all about the object privileges. Okay, object owner, yes, whomever is the owner of the object, he can grant privileges. Any role with manage grants privilege, yes, if you have given manage grants, then they can do it. That is for the regular schema. When it comes to managed access schema, right, sysadmin, no. Security admin can give, sorry guys, security admin can give, even though if it is managed access, security admin can grant privileges on the, sorry guys, so security admin can go grant object privileges on the managed access schema. Schema owner, yes, schema owner can give. Object owner, no. Any role with manage grants. Yes. So manage grants, if you grant it to any role, it can manage any grants and it can grant privileges. So these are the things that you have to remember when it comes to managed access schemas. So whenever you're trying to enable non-account administrators to monitor usage and billing, then I told you, right? Monitor usage, which gives the ability to access snowflake database where they can go and look at the billing part of and all this stuff. Global monitor usage privilege. Okay. And these are some of the examples. So if you want to grant privilege on a virtual warehouse to operate, to role unlist, grant, operate, and warehouse, suspend or resume. Warehouse, report warehouse to role unlist. But also allow the unlist role to grant the privilege to another role. If the unlist want to grant the same privilege, whatever they got it to a different role, then you have to give them with grant option. If you have add this with grant option, they can grant that particular role. Which role? Unlist role on this particular. So this operate command, they can grant it to somebody else. You are just giving the operator unlist role. And if the unlist role in turn can grant the operator to somebody else, then you have to give grant option. So select privilege on all tables, select on all tables in schema. And you have two functions, and there is something called function overloading. That means you can create multiple functions with the same name, but the parameters are different. Here it is a number, it's a string, and you can give the permissions like this. And if you want to give select and insert and feature tables, then grant select insert and feature tables in schema to role R1. Okay, so probably in the afternoon session we'll just see how do we the real-time scenarios, how do you create the roles hierarchy part of it, and then I'll show you how a real-time, how do you set up the roles for all this stuff. So we'll see it in the afternoon. Okay, are we
Sure,
clear?
sir. Yeah.
Okay, then let's catch up in the afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.